everyone. For those who don't know me yet, I'm Lara Guevara. I've spent 17 years in supply chain from enterprise, manufacturing, all the way to this cool space, DTC brands. And today I get to do my favorite thing to show you founders, supply chain experts. I believe we have operators here, what's actually happening inside their numbers. And I brought someone with me today who I have a lot of respect for. Andrew Faris, thank you. Andrew has spent years on the growth side. He understands media buying, creative strategy, retention at the level that most people in this space don't. What I love about doing workshop with Andrew, I think this is the second time, at the same conclusion is most brands are optimizing the wrong thing. So he's going to take everything I show you in part one and show you exactly how to act on it from a growth perspective in part two. Now, before we get into anything, I want you to hold this question the entire workshop. What if the product you're most proud of is actually the one that's quietly killing your margins? So to guide you, I'll send it in the chat box to keep you reminded of this question. Okay. And not because you made bad decisions, not because you don't know what you're doing, but because nobody ever showed you how to look it the right way. So that's what we're here today. We'll fix it and let's start. Hi, Andrew.
Hello, Lara, and hello, everybody. Great to see you. Great to be here with everybody. I know I'll be looking at the chat along the way for any Q&A. Lara, I think there's Q&A at the end too, right?
Yes. You can ask questions, and also at the end of this session, there's a Q&A portion. So, okay.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you, Andrew. So look at this slide. Revenue, of course. We love this number. We celebrate it. We Slack it to the team. We screenshot. We post it. We tweet it. But revenue is the number that lies the most. It's a vanity metric. And when you've never calculated contribution margin by SKU, and when you've been optimizing for ROAS without knowing your true profit, you might be paying to grow a loss. Your profitable ad could be paying to lose money faster. That little trophy in this presentation at the bottom, it's equal to zero. And that's what your bestseller might actually be worth after all the cost we're able to uncover. So quick trivia before we go any further. I want to see how tuned in this room is. Based on what you know right now, what do you think are the top 3 costs that founders most commonly leave out when they calculate the profit? So drop your guess in the chat, no wrong answers. It can be based on your experience in the past that you've forgotten to add this cost, or it's based on any experience that you have. So just write that in the chat box. Okay. So I'll be sharing if there are some answers later on. So here's what the data actually shows. And I see the pattern over and over across every brand we work with in Move Supply Chain. Number one is inbound freight and landed cost. Everyone knows their factory price. That's the unit cost. Almost nobody has properly allocated the cost of actually getting that profit to their warehouse. So you already know duties, taxes, the container, but sometimes you miss the dryage, the broker fees, other fees at port. There's so many fees at port. For brands sourcing from overseas, this alone can add 15 to 25% on top of your COGS, and it almost never shows up in the margin calculation. Number two, most left behind is returns processing. So not just refund. The handling cost, the inspection, the restock or disposal, the customer service ticket that came with it. For beauty and supplements, the return rate might be low, but for apparel or electronics, it can be 20, 30, or even 40% of units. Multiply that by your per unit handling cost, and you've got a number that will genuinely surprise you. Yes, Lorena shared cost of customer acquisition. That's my number 3. Allocated ad spend per unit. This is one of the most uncomfortable. Your CAC, your customer acquisition cost. needs to be divided down to the level unit of each SKU. So this is it's uncomfortable because it requires work. Most brands look at blended ROAS across the account and call it a day. But if your ad spend is going disproportionately to a low margin product, you're literally paying to lose money faster. And the blended number is hiding it from you. So those three alone, the top three, can take the product that looks like 50% margin winner and turn it into something like barely breaking even. Or worse, that's exactly what we're going to fix. And before we dive in, drop a number in the chat. What percentage of your revenue do you think is actually profit? Just got it. No math yet. What you know right now, what you know today. So I'll check that chat box again later. These primes our conversation today. Okay. So here's exactly what we're going to do today. And I want to set this up properly because the two parts of this workshop only work if you understand how they connect. So part one is margin tear down. That's me, Lara. For 30 minutes, we're going line by line through everything that's eating in your margin. And I mean everything, not just COGS, not just shipping, every single variable cost that touches a unit on its way to your customer's door. I'll give you the real contribution margin definition, not the textbook version, the one that actually reflects what you keep. I'll walk you through the unit economics tear down methodology so you can run this on your own catalog after the day, right after this workshop. And I'll introduce the kill, fix, and scale framework so you know exactly what to do with each product once you have the real number. So here's a quick example of why this matters. Imagine you have a $40 supplement. Your COGS is $8. You think you're at 80% margin, but by the time you add landed cost, fulfillment, returns, customer service load, and the ad spend it took to sell the unit, your actual contribution margin might be $6. And that's 15%, not 80%. And if your next order is already in transit, you need to know what that number is today, not next quarter. So I highly suggest and encourage you to do that exercise right after this workshop or tomorrow for those who are in EST and PST right now. Part two is the growth strategy reset. And that's where our special guest, Andre Faris, comes in. Andrew has built and scaled growth operations for some of the most recognized DTC brands out there. He thinks about media buying, creative strategy, and retention at a depth that most agency owners never reach. And what he's going to do in his 30 minutes is take everything we uncover in part one and show you how to rebuild your entire growth engine around it. Which products deserve more ad spend, how to brief your creative team by margin tier, how to segment your retention strategies so you're doubling down on the customers who are actually profitable, not just the ones who bought the most. And because here's the thing, knowing your margin is only half the battle. So that's my end. The other half is knowing what to do with that information inside your growth stack. That's the combination we're giving you today. Real math, real decisions. Okay, let's go. This is my half. And I want to make a promise to you right now. In the next 30 minutes, you're going to see your business differently than you did when you logged on today. Not because I'm going to teach you something wildly complicated, actually, the opposite. That's what I'm about to show you is almost embarrassingly simple. The math is fourth grade. The problem is that nobody ever told you to do it. So I think about supply chain the way a doctor thinks about symptoms. Your revenue number, your ROAS, your conversion rate, those are the symptoms. They tell you something is happening, but they don't tell you why. The margin tear down is the diagnostic. It's the part where we stop treating symptoms and actually looking at what's going on underneath. And I'll be honest with you, this part of the work is my favorite, not because I love spreadsheets, although I do have a thing for a well built spreadsheet, but
Did we
because
just lose
of
Lara?
what happens to founders when they see the real numbers for the first time. Something shifts, the fog lifts. And instead of feeling like a business is unpredictable, things that sometimes makes money and sometimes doesn't, it starts to make sense. It becomes something you can actually steer. That's what the next 30 minutes is for. We're going line by line. We're going to find what's hiding. And by the time Andrew takes over, we're going to have a framework that you can run on every SKU in your catalog tonight if you want to. So let's start tearing it down. All right. So look at the slide, two columns. The left side is what most brands calculate: revenue minus COGS, and that's it. Clean, simple, but completely wrong. And that's a number that makes you feel like you're winning. That's a number that gets screenshotted. That's a number that the agency celebrates in the Monday recap email. 60% margin, and we're crushing it. And of course, some brands add other expenses or other costs, but not everything. Now, look at the right side. Same product, same price, same customer, but now we're counting everything that actually touched that unit on its way out the door. Landed costs, freight allocation, pick, pack, ship, return processing, customer service load, ad spend for every unit, every single variable cost that exists because the product exists. 60% becomes 12. And that's not a rounding error. That's not an accounting technicality. That's the gap between what you think you're keeping and what you're actually keeping. And most of the brands, that gap is where the confusion lives. That's why the cash feels tight even when revenue is up. That's why Q4 looked amazing on the dashboard and then January felt like a hangover. The money was never really there. It was promised to cost you, weren't counting yet. Now, here's how I want you to look at it. COGS tells you what it costs to make the product. Contribution margin tells you what it costs to sell, to ship it, to handle it, to acquire customer who bought it. Those are two different numbers. And you cannot run a profitable business by optimizing for one and ignoring the other. I've sat across from founders doing 2 million, 5 million, 15 million in revenue. And the most common thing I see, they know their COGS cold. They can tell their manufacturer price per unit down to the cent. But ask them their landed cost per unit, then they go quiet. Ask them their allocated ad spend per SKU, and they say, well, our blended ROAS is 3.8. So that's the answer we usually get. That's the left column pretending to be the right column. The right column is what we're building today. I want to do a quick gut check. Think about your top selling SKU right now. You probably know your COGS. Now, do you know your landed cost per unit? Do you know your fulfillment cost per unit? Do you know how much ad spend it took to sell one unit of that product, that specific product last month? Drop a Y in chat if you know all three. Drop an N if you're missing at least one. So that's not a failure. Of course, that's why we're here. That's just where we are today. And by the end of this tear down, you'll have a methodology to get every single one of those numbers and a framework to know what to do once you have them. So this slide is the whole game. And don't worry, we'll be sending you a copy of this slide after this workshop. Everything we talk about today, the framework, the decisions, the strategy reset Andrew's going to walk you through, it all comes back to this. So I want to slow down here and actually walk through every single box because each one of these has a story. And some of them are going to hit differently depending on where your business is right now. Think of this as a waterfall. Every cost flows down from the moment your product is manufactured to the moment it lands in your customer's hands. And every drop in that waterfall is you leaving money, is a money leaving in your margin. And most brands only see the first drop. We're going to look at all of them. So first is the COGS, your raw materials and manufacturing. This is the one everybody knows. It's the starting point, the factory price, the bill of materials, the cost to make the thing exist. And here's the thing about COGS. It's actually the cost you have the most control over long term through negotiation, volume commitments, and supplier relationships. But it's also the one that fools you the most because it feels like the whole cost. It's not. It's just the beginning, the first. Then landed cost comes the duties, taxes, inbound freight. This is the first place most brands leave money on the table, or more accurately, leave money unaccounted for. Every product that crosses a border has a cost to get there. The ocean freight, the port fees. There are probably like five port fees. And if you're sourcing from China or Southeast Asia right now, you know those numbers have not been friendly lately. Because of the tariff. And I've seen brands whose landed cost adds 18 to 22 cents on top of every dollar of COGS. They had no idea. They were calculating margin off factory price and wondering why the P&L never matched the vibe. Next is freight allocation per unit shipping cost share. This one trips people up because it feels like a fixed cost. You pay for the container, you pay for the truck, and it's done. But it's not fixed at the unit level. Okay. If your container is half empty because you over ordered the SKU and under ordered another, your freight cost per unit just went up. If you're doing multiple small replenishment shipments instead of one efficient bulk run, maybe because of your cash flow or other business decision, your freight cost per unit is also higher. This is the number you need to calculate per SKU, per shipment, not just as a blended average, and the difference matters. Next is pick and pack, fulfillment center fees. So if you can bring out your latest invoice from your 3PL, that will be very helpful in today's session. Every time your 3PL touches a unit, they charge you. Pick fee, pack fee, special handling if the product has fragile components or specific requirements, dunnage, polybags, custom inserts. What else? If you have a complex products, multiple components, a gift box, a card insert, your pick and pack cost can be $2, $3, or $4 per unit. I worked with brand that had a very beautiful unboxing experience. Custom tissue paper, brand ribbon, a handwritten style card. Customers love it. If contribution margin hated it, we had to have a real conversation about what that experience was actually worth per unit sold. You know. Then next is returns processing, returns rate times handling cost. Here's the one nobody wants to talk about. And maybe they're not computing any of this at all because returns feel like an edge case. They're not. Depending on your category, your return rate could be anywhere from 3% to 40%. And it's not just refund. It's the cost to receive the return, inspecting it, restocking or disposing it, and handling it over to customer service interaction that came with it. So for one brand I worked with in apparel, returns processing was adding $4.7 per unit sold when you average it across the catalog. $4.70 on a product with $12 contribution margin before returns. That's almost 40% of their margin gone just from handling the units that came back. At the end of, after knowing that number, they decided not to get the products back, cheaper than getting it back. So disposed. They will refund, they will give another product, but the company or the client, the customer will not return the products back because it ends up being more expensive than just throwing it away. Next is CS load, customer service. I think this is for me one of the most under calculated. I didn't see anyone computing your CS load, tickets per SKU times cost per ticket. This one is almost invisible until you look for it. Some products just generate more questions, more complaints, more where's my order emails, more this didn't work for me tickets. Every one of those tickets cost money. Your CS team's time, your help desk software, your resolution costs, and it's not evenly distributed across the catalog. Usually, there's one or two SKUs that's generating a wildly disproportionate number of tickets. I call those products high maintenance. They have had bad unit economics and they're exhausting your teams. Those are often the clearest kill candidates. Next is the payment processing fee, the invisible tax on every transaction. Nobody puts this one in their margin calculation, or I've seen very rare. I've seen this very rare, but it's there on every single order. Stripe, Shopify, payments, PayPal, Afterpay, Klarna, they all take a cut, typically 2.5 to 3.5% of the transaction value. Sometimes more if you're offering buy now, pay later options, right? And here's what makes this sneaky. The fee scales with your revenue. So the more you sell, the more you pay. But because it comes out automatically, it never feels like a cost. On a $60 product, you might be paying 1.8 to 2.1 just to collect the money. Across thousands of orders a month, that's real margin. And I've seen brands running 8% through contribution margin who had never once included payment processing in their unit economics. It was just a line item they scrolled past on Shopify dashboard. Next is packaging and compliance cost, the cost of looking good and staying legal. This one shows up in two ways, and most brands only think one of them. The first is obvious: your box, your bag, your bottle, your label. Physical packaging has a unit cost and it fluctuates with material prices and minimum order quantities. But the second one is less obvious: compliance. Depending on your category in the markets you sell into, you may have labeling requirements, regulatory certifications, testing costs, or specific or state specific compliance fees. California Prop 65, FDA labeling rules for supplements, CPSC requirements for children product. These costs are real. They recur. It's not one time, and they are almost never allocated at the SKU level. I worked with a supplement brand that was spending 14K a year on a third-party testing and compliance documentation for a single product line. When we divided that by unit sold, it added $0.9 per unit to their true cost. Not huge, but on a product already running these margins, it was a difference between fix and kill. So inventory carrying cost, the cost of money sitting on your shelf. This is the one that surprises people the most because it feels theoretical, but it's absolutely real. Every unit sitting on your warehouse represents capital that you spent and haven't recovered yet. That capital has a cost. Either the interest you're paying on the credit line you used to buy it, or the opportunity cost of what you could have done with that cash instead. A standard way to calculate this is to take your cost of capital, let's say 20% annually, which is conservative for most TTC brands using credit, and apply it to the average inventory value of each SKU over the year. For a product that sits for 90 days before selling, you're carrying it for a quarter of a year. That's 5% of its landed cost, just in holding. And add warehouse storage fees on top and slow moving SKUs, this number can quietly turn a marginally profitable brand or product into a losing one. And enterprise companies have been calculating this for decades, in my experience, but DTC brands almost never do. And it's exactly the kind of cost that makes your accountant say margin looks fine while your bank account tells a different story. Next is the ad spend per unit, the CAC allocated for per SKU. And then this one, the one your agency really doesn't provide, your customer acquisition cost divided down to the unit level per SKU, not blended across account per product, because your ad spend is not going equally to every product in your catalog, and neither is the revenue it generates. When you allocate ad spend at the SKU level, sometimes you find a product that looks profitable until you realize you spent $22 in ads to sell a unit with a $19 contribution margin. So you just add $3 to move inventory. That's a very slow, very expensive way to lose money. And when you subtract every single one of those costs, all of this in the slide, from your revenue, not just COGS, not just shipping, all of it, what you have left is your true contribution margin. That's the real number. And what your business actually earned from selling that product to that customer on that day. Some of you are going to run this math after today and feel relieved. Your numbers are going to look better than you feared. And some of you are going to run it and feel a little sick. And if that's you, I want you to know that this is the best possible thing that could happen to you right now, because you cannot fix what you cannot see. And now you're going to be able to see everything. Out of everything we just walked through, and I threw 11 cost categories, not just eight, which one is the biggest blind spot in your business right now? If you can share that in our chat box. I'm opening it again. There you go. Okay. So look at that. If we have answers, I'll be also sharing to the other participants. So let's proceed to the next, the framework kill, fix, or skill. You've been hearing me say it earlier. If we can fix, or skill. So it's very easy to follow. These three buckets has a guidance here. Kill if it's negative or near zero CM, right? So high return rates, heavy CS burden, or unsalvageable unit economics, no strategic value. Sundown within 90 days. In enterprise, we call it very obviously depletion plan. We make sure that within 90 days they're out. No more. First is, of course, we will not order them anymore. That's the first step. And then next is creating marketing strategies, bundling, selling it the most creative way possible that you can do. Meet your marketing team and make sure that they understand that we need to move these products and empty them out because they're bleeding us money. If that is communicated properly to your marketing, then they will definitely help you move those out or deplete the products. So next is fix. Positive CM but underperforming. So in my recommendation, I'm giving 60 to 90 days plan to increase the CM. So renegotiate COGS. That's your first step. Next is optimize packaging. Every single savings projects should be done right away within 60 to 90 days. Reduce return rate and then adjust pricing strategy. If you could increase your price, then that's one easy step. But I know a lot of you are not very comfortable doing that. Next is scale. Strong CM plus growth potential. Now, prioritize ad spend here. Build bundles around it. Expand variants. Maybe the kill products be partnered or be bundled with the scale products. Expand variants, colors, designs. Double down on inventory. These are the products that cannot be out of stock, right? It moves fast. Aggressive investment roadmap. Okay, so this is the case study, and I want to tell you this story properly because the numbers on this slide are real, and the journey to get there was not a straight line. This is a 2 million DTC brand supplements. After we ran the complete margin teardown, we discovered that 40% of her SKUs had negative or near zero contribution margin. So 40%. She looked at me and said, "What do we do?" And of course, as not the brand owner, I said, "We cut them." She did not say yes, of course. She pushed back hard. She said, "But those are our best sellers by revenue. Our customers love them. Some of them are their first few products when they started. So there's an emotional, there's an attachment there. They've built campaigns around them. So if we cut them right away, what will it tell their audience or their customers?" So I understood. I've seen it. When you've poured your identity into a product, cutting it feels like admitting you were wrong. It feels like a failure. So we didn't cut them right away. Instead, we made a deal. We'd run one more quarter, same budget, same support, but this time we will track every dollar in and every dollar out per SKU the right way. And she agreed. 90 days later, we sat down again. The numbers were worse, not because anything changed, but because now she could see it clearly. She looked at the spreadsheet and she agreed to kill some of them. But how do we do this without blowing up the business? That's the right That's the right question. And that's why this is where the depletion plan comes in. The depletion plan is exactly what it sounds like. You don't flip a switch, you drain the inventory down in a controlled, intentional way so you're not leaving money on the table and not making a dramatic announcement to your customers. I learned this working in enterprise, and it's one of those things that big companies do quietly all the time, but DTC brands miss. So, just a quick story. I was at a large consumer goods company. We're talking a household name, hundreds of SKUs across multiple retail channels. Every year, the supply chain team and the commercial team would sit down and do what they called a portfolio rationalization review. Basically, which SKUs are earning their slot on the shelf and which ones aren't. It sounds brutal. It kind of is. One year, we had a product specific flavor variant that had been in the lineup for almost 6 years. It had a loyal base, it had brand equity, it had its own little fan corner on social media. It also had a contribution margin of just over 2% on a product that cost us real money to manufacture, package, and ship to retailers. The math was simple, the politics were not. So, what we didn't do was to pull it from the shelves overnight. Of course, we didn't do that. That would have created chargebacks from retailers, confused loyal customers, and tanked the perception of the broader product line. Instead, we built a 6-month depletion plan. We stopped all new production runs immediately. That was step one. The bleeding stops now. It should stop right away. We sold through existing inventory at current price, no discounting, because discounting a negative margin product just accelerates a loss. We quietly remove it from any marketing materials and new campaign budgets. We let the retail velocity naturally flow. And then the last units clear the warehouse, it was just gone. No announcement. Customers who love it moved to adjacent products. The team barely noticed. The margin impacts showed up in the next quarter's number, and everyone wondered why things look so much better. So that was what we built for this founder. Her depletion plan had 4 parts. First, stop reordering. The moment we agreed to cut, we froze any open POs on those SKUs. No new inventory coming in. Second, sell through without discounting. We move existing stock through her email list and through bundles with her tier one hero products. Bundling was the smart move because it let her clear inventory while also introducing customers to the products that actually wanted to scale. Third is remove the paid media immediately. No more ad spend going to fund a loss. Cold turkey. Fourth, sunset the listing quietly once inventory hits zero. No big announcement or farewell, no clearance sale. It took about 4 months to fully wind down. Revenue dipped slightly in month two, which she expected, and had planned for. And then it came back, and the cash that used to disappear every month, it stayed. Net margin tripled over the following 2 quarters. The SKU she loved the most were the ones killing her brand. What she needed to see that herself, and she needed a plan for that. That depletion plan made the exit feel safe, not scary. So that's a real story. It's never as clean as cut and win, but when you have the right numbers and a clear depletion roadmap, the decision eventually makes itself. So let's lock in what just happened. Contribution margin is not revenue minus COGS. It's revenue minus all variable costs. Every single thing that touches that unit on its way to the customer. You now have a methodology to tear down unit economics for every SKU in your catalog. And then kill, fix, or scale. Remember the 3 buckets. It gives you a decision framework that removes emotion from the equation. You don't have to love your products to death anymore. You can love and hold them accountable. Now, that's the diagnostic. My 30 minutes, that's the truth about where you are. But the question is now, what do you actually do with the truth? How do you restructure your growth engine around real margin data? And that's exactly what my partner Andrew is about to answer. Andrew, take it away.
All right, some of those stories are both horrifying and awesome, Lara, because there's clearly some stuff to be done there for a lot of brands, and I've seen lots of things like that before. So yeah, it's like when you hear these stories of brands that are like spending all this money on products they love, products they feel great about, all these things, and then it turns out to be just like actually a money loser. It is awful. So okay, what I want to do is tell you about how I think about building, and I really focus this on meta ads. I think that's where kind of a lot of people are in terms of thinking about profitability and driving profit through. So I want to talk about how to connect this to your ad account directly, and really how we at AJF Growth and how I for a long time have been trying to take the kinds of insights that Lara has and put them into an ad account that in a way that makes sense and is really driven by financials. Today, not but a couple hours ago, I tweeted this. I'm now the most convinced I've ever been that media buying isn't that important. Take is extremely, extremely wrong. There's this take that floats around on the internet sometimes, which is that sort of media buying is not really the thing that matters that much, because your product is what matters, your TAM is what matters, your brand is what matters, and all this. And I think to sort of take the Steelman version of what people are normally saying when they say this sort of thing, it's that, and it's all true, that with a really bad product and with a really bad brand and all those kinds of things, and with bad margins, you are starting behind the eight ball. And so it's true, like, care a lot about your product, you can get really far with under optimized media buying, etc. But what I have also come to believe is that doubting the importance of really good quality media buying is actually a really huge problem. And the reason I think that is because I just see accounts all the time. Often there's selection bias here, because it's accounts that end up on my desk, which means they're probably unhappy with their past agency or whatever. But that's also the kind of person who, at the same time, the reason that they're unhappy is because their media buying is bad. They actually already have the good product, the good brand, and all those things, and something is going wrong with their media buying level. And I'm watching with brands right now, literally today. I had a brand whose spend just started to go incredibly well positively. It was a mix of some new ads and a sale moment that they launched. And the new ads are definitely making a really big impact. The sale moment is making a big impact. Both of them are mattering, and there's evidence that they're actually both having a really big impact. But the setup in the ad account is allowing them to maximize the moment with very little risk to their marginal efficiency, to their contribution margin, in a way that is just like showing a giant revenue spike, because they've sort of got everything right by setting up their media buying the right way. And so they're creating a bunch of value. On the other hand, I've looked at other brands recently, other accounts that I've gotten access to, that have sort of moved away from what I think are best practices. And I've seen them really, really harm their profitability on a lot of different levels. Some of this is at the unit economic level with wrong considerations for the things that Lara was just talking about. I had one client who, one brand who I was talking to who had spent multiple millions of dollars on international ads at one point, because the international ROAS looked awesome. But what they had done is they'd failed to make their margin consideration look right on international freight. They had adjusted their international freight costs incorrectly. And so they'd spent millions of dollars. And thankfully for them, they ended up probably fairly close to break even. It didn't kill them or anything like that. But it could have been a way worse mistake if it weren't for some other attributes of the business that went really, really well. And it's because they made a margin mistake, and that margin mistake didn't make it into their media buying. And then when you add that to bad media buying, that, there's just like huge amounts of cost. So I really believe this is very important, both in terms of saving on costs and driving revenue. I think they're both a really, really big deal. Okay, so let's get into this. I'm going to do this in four stages. I'm going to call it media buying built for profit. When your media buying isn't built on the foundation of clear financial targets, you're funding negative returns. It's very similar to what Lara just laid out. And I think the ideal version of this, and truly great D2C operations, what great operators do, is they get clarity to all of the things that Lara's talking about. And I have a theory I've said for a while, that supply chain is the most under-optimized part of e-commerce businesses. I think, like, Lara has told me that she gets on supply chain intake calls sometimes, and she starts like kind of giggling to herself and having to hide it, because the supply chain is such a mess when it gets to her desk. And so I do believe that's true. So like, there's this work to be done there. But then from there, you have to take that work and put it into the ad account. And so that's what I mean by saying it's media buying built for profit and built on financial foundations. And so I want to go through that in 4 steps by thinking about sort of the handoff from what Lara just said, which is start with clear unit economics, which is exactly the stuff that Lara just walked through with all the details, especially that one slide with those 8 icons on it. And then understand your LTV and your DPM, which I'll explain in a minute. From there, organize your campaigns on financial foundations and your ad sets. Leverage manual bids, kill your creative testing campaigns, scale your winning products, suppress your losing ones. Okay, so we'll do it in 4 steps. Okay, Start with clear unit economics. I cannot tell you how many times I have had the conversation with people that starts off with them circling around this question, or people who come to me and work and they have some ROAS target in their ad account, and they are asking themselves the question. At some point, they've asked themselves the question, what ROAS do I want on my ads? They may actually have never asked it that in explicit terms. Though usually an agency person will tell them, okay, what's your ROAS target? The agency will go to them. I've seen this conversation a lot of times. In fact, I used to have it with people and say like, okay, well, what's your target? Right. And there are occasionally operators who have a very clear sense of the unit economics and they know this is the target that I want. Okay. But actually, what we tend to do a lot of times in the first intake step at AJF Growth is we tell them what that we think their ROAS target should be, and we do that based off of their margin information, which almost always could use a lot more tightening from Lara and her team, and I regularly recommend that they go do that. And then so but otherwise, without us doing that, they're asking the question, what's a good ROAS? And they're asking, what ROAS do I want based on that? Like what's a good ROAS? Like they'll say like, well, I don't know, what's good. What's good for a brand to have at the ROAS level, like as if there's some ROAS number floating out there in the ether that's good for your brand. Let me just tell you right now, the ROAS number that's good for your brand is based on your unit economics and your customers. It's really, really different for my supplement brands that have monster LTV versus brands who have customers who basically only ever buy once from them. They're approaching the question of ROAS extremely different. So like, what's a good ROAS is a useless question because of that. It should be based on your own unit economics and your financial metrics. They'll do it based on view attribution in an ad account. This is like a sneaky thing where view attribution for your conversions ends up making your performance look a lot better than you think. There's also a lack of understanding of new versus existing customer targeting that sneaks into a lot of ad accounts. We see that a lot. And then frankly, people are making this decision based on vibes a lot of times. I don't know, 2-to-1 sounds nice, nice round number, etc. But it's actually a critical question because, as Lara was just getting at, there are all of these particular costs in your particular business that really matter. So we want to instead move to a financially driven approach, which is contribution margin weighted ROAS targets. Okay, so essentially ROAS targets that are accounting for your contribution margin. And if you want to get really fancy, you could actually do it as a return on invested capital. Both those get you to the same kind of space. You're thinking about incremental revenue creation. So where you're at, where is your ROAS actually legitimately incremental? This becomes a big question with like branded search in your Google ads versus your versus existing customer targeting in your meta ads versus new customer targeting, etc. Consideration of LTV, consideration of your DPM. That's an acronym you've probably never heard before. It means delayed purchase multiplier. And don't worry, I will tell you about it in a second. And then eventually get to a point where every ad dollar drives actual profit. Okay, so let's do step one. And I want to start with this, the unit economics calculator, as an approach to this question. This is a simple Google sheet. I have been using some version of this sheet for probably 10 years in D2C at this point. And it is so simple in so many ways. And it is free on my website. You go to ajfgrowth.com, you sign up for my email list, it'll on the pop-up or on the footer, and it'll kick it to you. So just go do that. And what you see here very, very clearly is that this sheet spits out a few things. So it starts with your average order value. Okay, so in this case, $66. Cost of goods is right here. Now, let's be really clear. People are wrong about this all the time, and this is where like the better you can answer that very first row 5, this question right here. The more that you work with somebody like Lara to get real clarity to that, the better. And secondly, a thing you can do with this sheet is you can actually break that out as much as you want, because all this is doing is then taking all these other things, merchant fees, which Lara mentioned, right? Whether that's your regular credit card provider, Shopify processing, or BNPL, Klarna or whatever. Shipping costs, like that's freight to the customer returns. There's a consideration for that. I actually don't think I have like returns processing in here. And Lara, I'm feeling rightly chided by your comment about that I've under considered that and I need to add it. I was thinking about that as you were saying. I was like, you're totally right. That's not my unit economic calculator. Fulfillment costs per unit, etc. Some of these you can adjust with percentages, with raw numbers. You could really do it either way. But ultimately, if you were to add up this whole column, they'd create $23.40 total cost of product to fulfill. Percentage cost right there, 35%. And then that kicks into some ROAS targets. Now, these ROAS targets are not telling you what you should do. They're just giving you different scenarios, okay? So break even, 20% below, 20% above. And you can see column I right here, first purchase contribution margin based off of the numbers here with the CAC targets and the ROAS targets. You've got, expressed either as a ROAS or a CAC here. And then you've got contribution margin here. Now, this brand has 100% LTV, which means the value of a customer is doubling in a year. If they spent $66 in the first order, they spend another $66 throughout the year. That's what that 100% means there. And so they have good contribution margin through the year because they have really, really strong LTV. In this case, by the way, this is not a real brand. These are just dummy numbers in this case. But there you go. And then you've got a 28-day click, and then you've got some ROAS targets and CPA targets from there. Now, as I was saying, if I was actually building this for a particular brand and I had somebody as good as Lara on my team or like working with the team, what I would actually probably do is break out this 1386 into its component parts and discover things. And it would probably be wrong if I did that, right? I would actually say like, okay, I didn't consider, tariffs correctly or something like that. And like, so I'd add a line for that. And you can really make this your own. If you go sign up and grab this from my website, you duplicate it, create your own version, and then go nuts. As long as you end up with the true costs all here in this cell, you're in good shape. Okay. So start with clear unit economics. That's really key. Build this into a number that you can actually see. And now you have the beginnings of what different ROASs or different CACs in your meta ads account actually deliver to you in terms of CM. So now in columns I and column J, whether on first purchase or over the course of 1 year. And of course, again, you could consider this on any timeline you wanted. You'd have to do a little bit of adjusting, but just ask Claude how to do it if you can't figure it out, and you can do it. And you can get some different adjustments for the time period that you want. And so, yeah, there's not enough time in this to talk through that with a lot of detail, but there you go. If you want to understand your LTV and where to put this, let me give you a couple places to go look for this. One of them is Shopify's customer cohort analysis report. That's literally a free tool in your Shopify reports dashboard. This is my favorite way of organizing this, which is actually the key part. Have this show first order toggle clicked on that you can see right here. Go to amount spent per customer. There's a few metrics here. There's retention rate. There's amount spent per customer. There's some others. And then go to whatever timeline you want. This is starting from 2024, so you can see a longer timeline. And what you see for this brand is that on average, over the course of 2024, their first orders from their customers were about $66, something like that. It's a non-weighted average. It's just an average across everything. And within 12 months, they've got $102 per customer. Okay. So some quick math here. Please hold. 102 over 66.7 or 101.9. Let's just get it exactly right. Over 66.7 is a 52.7%, 52.8% LTV. So that's which is to say this month 12 number up top here is 153% of this first order number. And so if you were to come back to my unit economics calculator here, in this LTV column, you would put 53% because that would be the 1 year LTV increase, right? My formula is subtract the first order from it. So that would be the increase. So you'd put 53% in there. Ask a question there if you're not clear about what I just said. But that's the basic idea. So yeah, but that's the idea. You go calculate this information there, and of course you can see different times of year. There's different considerations. LTV is tricky. There's a lot of considerations with LTV. There's seasonality considerations, product purchase considerations, retention efforts considerations, subscriber versus not considerations. There's all kinds of messiness. Can get you into trouble if you do it wrong. But you can at least have some basic sense of kind of what the LTV of that is. And by the way, you can do cohort definitions by product here. Okay. So you can go check that and say, hey, I want to look at one particular product and go make that for like product A. And that way you are saying, oh, look, this product over here. In fact, I just did this for a brand that discovered one product had like 35% better LTV than another product. And I had no idea. Like there was no reason to think that up front. Then you can kind of tell yourself a story about why it happened, but it made us change our ROAS targets because it was like, wait a minute, this product has much, much better margin than you think. By the way, back here, there's other costs that Lara hadn't even gotten to yet that could also be considered. For example, give backs, donations built into certain products. That's something that people miss a lot. I've seen that where like if you're doing a give back on a particular product, that can be in there. Or licensing fees is another one that Lara didn't mention. Again, she's not going to be surprised by any of those, but like that I've seen happen for brands, or even licensing fees with a give back. And so suddenly you're listen, God bless the people who are giving the give backs because they're normally for good reasons, but you just got to be aware of what you're doing there. So there's that. The Shopify one is a good place to start. They can also be a little clunky and tricky to work with in some ways. Check out Clio. Clio's $29 a month, and it is like a full detailed dashboard tool. It's really cool. It's really, really cool. My friend Matthias Schroeder built Clio. It's meant to be the judge.me of like analytics tools, which is like to say good and cheap at the same time. So go check it out. Lifetime is much more expensive, pretty robust. It's a few $100 a month. And then I'm sure you could build some custom AI thing yourself. Just vibe code your way into it. Or spend the $29 a month for Clio and vibe code something else. All right. DPM is another thing that I think like very few people are getting to, which is this question of like, when you say your ROAS, what do you actually mean? And so it depends. If you are in meta ads and you set the baseline default meta consideration, what it's going to do is opt you into attribution on 7-day click, which means somebody clicks and buys within 7 days of them clicking, 1-day view attribution, and 1-day engaged view attribution. So it's going to have all of those defaulted on, which means a view attribution is somebody who sees your ad but does and buys. They see your ad and they buy, but they don't click, and they buy within 1 day. Now, the thing is, if you send an email and you are advertising to, like, the point is that's really messy. 1-day view attribution, there's probably some truth to that, but there's no indication that that's actually really consistently incremental to your ad spend. Whereas 7-day click ad spend tends to be much more incremental. And so the way that I have approached what attribution, like what ROAS number I'm actually optimizing for a very long time, is by looking at Meta's 28-day click revenue number. And there's a lot of details here that I simply don't have time to get into all of. But it can begin to help you see this. And so if you see here, you go to Meta Ads dashboards, compare attribution windows in your column setup. You can see what I've got in here, which is 1-day click, 7-day click, and 28-day click. You can see that by the raw purchases number. You can see it by ROAS. You can see it by revenue. You can see it by CAC. You can see it, all the same ways you normally would have something broken out. And go look right now. A bunch of you in your ads account, I guarantee you have view attribution clicked on. And when you go do this, you'll see 28-day click ROAS is lower than your sort of default, like this column here, if you can see my mouse, than your default number there. But the thing is, 28-day click revenue is probably, in most cases, about right. It's roughly the true incremental contribution of Meta. People are very worried about Meta sort of self-grading their homework and Meta sort of lying to you about things. Now, there's a bunch of exceptions to this, including certain brands with certain considerations. There's also considerations here for if your pixel's installed correctly and all kinds of problems there. So you got to make sure that you've got good data integrity. But assuming all that is the case, 28-day click ROAS on Meta is roughly, for most brands, I want you to hear what I'm saying there, roughly for most brands, an accurate depiction of the actual incremental revenue if you are optimizing for 7-day click or even probably 1-day click optimization in your conversion bidding. The reason that's so important is that we are trying to get down to the actual unit economic consideration of where your ad dollars are creating value versus not. Where are they just cutting into your cost versus not? So if Meta is telling you that you have a return of 3-1, but it's actually 2-1, that's a really, really, or 2.5-1, or even if Meta's telling you it's a 2-1, it's actually 1.5-1, that's actually a huge difference in the performance of your ads that you need to know about. And attribution is, like, again, there's just way too many things to get into over time here. But yeah, it's really a serious consideration. Or it's really important to have some baseline sense of what's going on here. There's one big challenge with this, and I'm going to try and tell you it right now, and then I'm going to have to keep moving for the sake of time. But it's this: Meta reports the purchase on the day of the purchase, not the day of the click. So if somebody clicked 6 days ago and they bought today, Meta will report that purchase today. It will not assign that purchase to 6 days ago, which means that all the time, if I'm spending today, but some of the value I'm driving today is not actually going to accrue until 6 days later, then my spend is always going to look its worst today to some degree, right? Because there's a bunch of value that's going to be in front of me. This is really obvious that this creates value over time. Not everybody clicks and buys right away, right? But that happens, and it makes it really hard to look at this historically. So one simple way to get at this number is to go look in your Meta account at some campaign that's been turned off for at least 28 days, okay? Go look at that. If that campaign's been turned off for at least 28 days, then you have the full attribution window across the full timeline of the campaign, and you can compare these numbers using this little equation that I have here. Your delayed purchase multiplier, DPM, okay, delayed purchase multiplier. I don't even know if I actually spelled that word out. Delayed purchase multiplier. What we're talking about is when people delay their purchase from 1 day. So the delayed purchase multiplier is your 28 DC purchases or ROAS or revenue or whatever, divided by your 1 DC or your 7 DC. You can really do it either way, -1. So the idea is to do that. If you go back to my unit economic calculator, it's this number right here. So the point is, if you have a 1-to-1 on 7-day click and you have a 1.2 on 28-day click, then this is a 20% increase in the value of that customer. You can also set it from 1-day click to 28-day click, from 1 to 7, from 7 to 28, whatever. You can set it wherever you want to. But the point is, do that little division, and that's the way you can get there. Actually, even simpler than all that, if you just want a heuristic to work with in your business, is that 2 different meta-analyses conducted by Common Thread Collective and by House, the best incremental or the most robust incremental firm in D2C. I don't know if they're the best, but they've got the most data of anybody. Okay. Which is to say, looking at hundreds of meta ads incrementality tests separately, said that when advertisers optimize for 7-day click, which I recommend you do, okay, that the incremental value of those meta ads optimized for 7-day click is about 115% to 120% of their 7DC number. So if you're getting a 1-to-1 on 7DC, the average incremental return across hundreds of these, and again, these are two separate independent meta-analyses of a whole bunch of individual incrementality tests. Okay, they say that on average you're getting 115 to 120% return. So you could reasonably assume that for most brands that your true return on your ad spend is about 115% of your 7DC number. Okay. All right. I'm going to keep moving. I know there'll probably be questions about that, but I'm going to keep moving. Understanding this and getting clear to what I just said is important for your business, though. It is important for your business. It is a way that you will not get taken for a ride by an agency pumping up big ROAS numbers for you. It's a way that you will understand your spend. So if you are unclear about what I'm saying, I want to challenge you right now. It's very likely that Lara and I are covering in this webinar the two largest costs in your business: your ad spend, probably your meta spend specifically, and your COGS. Okay. And so it is incumbent on you as an operator, if you are going to be good at this, to understand those things deeply and clearly. You don't have to ever understand every part of your business super deeply and clearly, especially as it grows. You really don't. There's things that you can pass off to good people. But when it's the largest line items in your P&L, you need to understand them. And you need to understand the details of them. And so I tried to be as clear as possible. There's only so much time, but I want you to hold yourself accountable to that as you do this. Understand what I'm talking about. It's a little tricky, but you can get there. You can do it. Okay. So there's that delayed purchase multiplier. By the way, this unit economics calculator has this built into it, right? So for example, if you wanted break even in this case, a 1.55, okay, let's say you wanted to do that and your delayed purchase multiplier is 20%, like we just discovered. What this will spit out for you is what the ROAS target you would need would be for whatever 1DC or 7DC multiplied up to the 28 DC number. So you'd need to target a 1.29 or a $51 CPA. Okay. So just kind of, it tells you what number to optimize for because you can't optimize for 28-day click in Meta. So you can sort of see what the number is. All right. Number two, that was only number one. We're going to move faster on the other ones. Number two, organize campaigns financially. This is a very clear one, but it's something I see done poorly all the time. I'm going to show you a campaign setup. This is actually an actual client of ours. They've got two different things here. What I want you to see first is that the campaigns are set up by product groupings. This is sort of a financially organized campaign structure. Okay, there's a custom product for this brand, and there's product 2 for this brand. I couldn't give away what the brand is, but there's two different products. Okay, and what I want you to see, part of the reason to organize these campaigns by financially, what I mean is organize campaigns by economic unit. Okay, is that there's a couple advantages here. One of them is if they run out of product 2, if they have an inventory issue, I can just turn off the campaign. It makes it really, really easy to manage that when you have inventory related issues, which every brand does when they're young and growing and when an ad takes off that you didn't plan inventory for or whatever. It happens all the time. So it's really nice. It also gives you a quick bird's eye view of what's happening in your business when you open up your ad account, what's happening in your ad account, if all of your campaigns are organized by product. It's really, really easy. So there's all that, but more than any of that, like look at the average purchase value here. This is the AOV. That's what this column is. If you look at custom and look at this top line, the BC line, this one here, the top line, you can see this product is producing a $57 AOV. That's very different from product 2 here. Okay, this BC, just look at the BC and the BC, compare those two. That one is producing an $80 AOV, okay, on those particular campaigns. Okay, same exact targeting, same exact bidding method, same attribution method, same optimization window, all those things. Just different products producing different AOVs. If you put those products in the same campaigns, you're going to have really weird different outcomes. For example, like if you're trying to get a 2-to-1 on these different products, like what you would end up discovering is that your CPA would be really different. Now, as it happens, these CPAs are very similar across the board, and there's a couple of weird reasons for that that are sort of unrelated to what's going on here. Although you can see at the 7DC level, it's not. So if you look, right here, you see this top line is getting a $37 7-day click CPA. This one's getting a $41 7-day click CPA. Those are pretty materially different CPAs, and they're getting them relative to different AOVs. And it's really important that you understand how to do that, okay? So campaigns set up by different product groupings because different AOVs means different ROAS targets, okay? That's really important. Secondly, so many people are still not using value optimization. It makes me crazy. Value optimization is a tool in meta ads that allows you to optimize not for the lowest cost, not for the lowest CPA, which is like the default setting in meta ads is highest volume. That's what Meta will default you into, highest volume, which is Meta's way of saying get the most number of conversions possible at the lowest cost possible. Okay, so people used to call it lowest cost, now it's called highest volume. But lowest cost is the idea. And what that means is Meta's optimizing for the lowest CPA possible. But if you think about that, if there's two products in here, right? Or if you've got a product that actually creates a range of AOV outcomes, because some people stack the products, in bundles and some people don't or whatever, or if you've got two different products mixed together with different AOVs, if you are optimizing for the lowest CAC, you are inevitably going to go, your spend is inevitably going to be targeting customers who are going to spend less because it costs less to acquire customers who spend less. Okay. And therefore, Meta has another tool that is very useful called highest value bidding. And that's what these TROAS campaigns are. I'm going to talk more about the TROAS part in a second. Highest value bidding allows you to then go and say, what if I actually want to get customers who are going to spend more and I'm willing to pay more for them because they spend more? So if you look, this is the exact same products in both of these. Okay. Product 2 is actually even easier to see than the one I highlighted. You could see here, $80 CPA on the lowest cost campaigns, $80 AOV on the lowest cost campaigns, $98 on the highest value ones. That's because Meta is optimizing its spend. It's the exact same ads, by the way, exact same ads in both of these campaigns. It's just optimized for value versus volume. And that's the difference here. And you can see that in both of these. So every AJF growth account is organized exactly the way you see here, typically by product, or something like that, and then with two versions of it with the same ads. And people are going to ask, is there overlap in those two? And the answer is yes. There's a little bit of overlap in the middle, but not very much. There's a bunch of customers on this side of the spectrum who spend more. There's a bunch of customers on this side of the spectrum who spend less. And there's a little bit of overlap in the middle, but every customer exists on some spectrum like that. And value goes after one side, volume goes after the other. So the same ads will just reach further for you accordingly. Now, of course, what you have to do is follow everything Lara just said when you do it. Set all of that stuff into your unit economics calculation. And so you'd go back and say, okay, instead of the $66 that I put into here, right, now I have a product that's getting actually a $98 AOV. Now I have to go consider all of these things relative to a $98 AOV. Now my shipping cost got amortized over a larger average order value, and I actually got more margin when that happened, right? Assuming it costs the same amount to ship your $98 thing as it did to your $55 thing, okay? And so again, what you're trying to do is think financially about the value creation for each of these different types of products, and organize accordingly. Okay. Let me see what's being said here. Yes, Justin asked. Yes, same exact ads. Literally one to one, same exact ads in both campaigns. So that's value optimization, which a lot of people are still not using. Okay. The other thing that you see in this account is the use of manual bids, bid caps, and target ROAS. If you followed any of my content at all, you're not going to be surprised to see this. This is something I'm pretty hot on, and that's because I think they're really, really valuable. What we're doing now is we're taking this consideration from the unit economics calculator right here and saying, I'm going to give Meta this target on the 1DC or 7DC level, depending on my optimization. And I'm going to say, I want you to go only spend my money if you're hitting this target. And with a bid cap allows you to tell Meta, spend money as long as you can acquire customers, or as long as you think, quote unquote, as long as you probabilistically forecast. Meta doesn't think, it probabilistically forecasts with machine learning. As long as Meta forecasts that it can acquire customers at or below your target, then it will go reach as much volume as possible within that target CAC. Okay. A target ROAS is not quite the same. A bid cap is a threshold, and you're telling Meta spend up to this threshold CAC. Okay. A target ROAS is an average, which is also what a cost cap is. If you hear people talk about that, a cost cap is an average. I prefer the threshold versus the average. There is no threshold version on the value optimization side. So the TROAS is a manual bid on value optimization that allows you to say, okay, Meta, I would like this return on my ad spend. Okay, and you enter that in there, and Meta only spends the things that can get there. I want to warn you right now, please hear me if you're following this, to know that very, very often your true ROAS particularly comes in lower than what the TROAS says. And I don't exactly know why that is, but it's the case in many accounts that I'm in. So what I'm saying is set your TROAS number conservatively, expect to have to bid. If you want a 1.5, you might have to set it at a 2 or whatever. Most accounts, you kind of figure out where that dynamic works. Some of them end up evening out over time. Just beware that's an issue. So it doesn't work perfectly in that respect, but it is a really, really useful tool for sort of putting a governor on your spend and then telling Meta to go get as much volume as possible with that. When I was saying earlier that great media buying led to this great sale moment with this great ad earlier today, like literally and yesterday for this brand, it's because of this. It's because the brand had bid caps and target ROAS set up. An ad took off yesterday. Then they launched a sale today. They're actually unrelated to each other. They just happened to put the ad in the account yesterday and then the sale today. And the two of them together Meta realized quickly, quote unquote, realized that both the bid cap and target ROAS level, it was able to spend well at the target that the advertiser had set a whole bunch of money. That it was, the ads were converting really well, the sales converting really well, and so Meta just goes and starts scaling the ads, and it allowed them to create a whole bunch of value. If you search bid caps on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Andrew Podcast, I got a bunch of content about that. There's like 4 or 5 episodes about that, so you can go dig in. I just mentioned this unit economic calculator allows you to set those targets at 1DC, 7DC, whatever you want. But there you go. I'm going to keep moving here. Another thing with manual bids is it allows you to get away from creative testing campaigns, which are one of the biggest money sucks in the entirety of the D2C ecosystem. It is the weirdest thing in all of D2C to me. A media buyer changes the name of a campaign to the words creative testing, and suddenly they are free to lose a bunch of money. I don't understand it at all, just by changing the name of the campaign. It makes no sense. Instead of doing that, very, very simple. Launch your new ads in with all of your other ads. You see the word scale here? They're actually totally redundant. We don't have creative testing campaigns. We don't have test campaigns. All we have is scale campaigns. I don't even know why we still have that word in our naming convention. We should get rid of it because every campaign is a testing campaign. Every campaign is a scaling campaign. Again, in the example I gave to you today, those were ads that were launched in with a bunch of proven winners, and they just took over the ad account because Meta can figure it out. So get rid of your creative testing campaigns. Use manual bids, launch your ad, your new creative in there. It's another way to not waste money and have financially driven media buying. You have a target, hold Meta to hitting it. Stop wasting money. Stop it. Stop it right now. Quit wasting your money. It is so bad. Don't do it. I have a full podcast episode about this. I think she'll be linked in whatever PDF gets sent out here, or you can just search that. But there you go. So, all right, hobby horse over. This is number 4, the last part. Scale winning products. Okay. So from there, once you've done all of this setup and you've got your manual bids set up and you've been conscious of your unit economics and you know your LTV and you know your DPM and all these things, let this drive your creative investment. Okay. As you'll see here, these custom products are crushing product 2 in this ad account. And if I showed you the rest of this ad account, you'd see there's a range of outcomes here. Okay. And there's 2 ways to approach this moment. One of them is product 2 is not getting as much volume as it should. I'm going to go put creative investment into product 2. And that's a reasonable approach in some cases. You just follow your gut and say, I know this product is good. It's better than I think. It has margin room, etc. And the whole reason why the custom product is getting so much more volume than product 2, the whole reason is because I've invested a bunch of creative time and effort into it, and I've got creators and whatever. Okay, and maybe that's one approach. Okay, so it's like now I got to go do that same thing for product 2. For some brands, that's the right answer. For other brands, it's the opposite. It's product 2. I've put in a bunch of effort. It's doing nothing. Instead of spinning my wheels on product 2 for longer, I'm just going to go where the getting's good and put more creative effort into custom. I cannot tell you the answer to that question for your business on this call right now. I can't do that because your business is different and it changes all the time. This is where smart people using their brain can do this stuff effectively. But that's the way to think from there, is that creative investment then happens to drive products based on all of the unit economic considerations we have, and with a media buying account setup allowing you to scale the winners and suppress the losers. The nice thing about this is that manual bids will not spend your money if you're not getting the return that you want, generally speaking. It's not perfect. It's probabilistic forecasting machine. It's probabilistic. It's not perfect. And so the nice thing about this is those products are still sitting in this ad account and they're not doing a lot right now, but they're slowly kind of moving off the shelf. It's just kind of getting through little bits of inventory here and there, and the advertisers will get there. At some point, maybe we'll come back around. But right now, we're investing in other places. The nice thing, though, is that I don't have to go monitor these campaigns very closely. I just kind of get a few purchases a day on this product, let it go, and the manual bids suppress the spend for me. And then we put the creative investment into where we think the bigger opportunities are. All right. Stop celebrating revenue, start understanding profit. Lara, anything else you want to say there? I'm done. I finished.
Thank you so much, Andrew. This is the whole thing, like right here. Start understanding profit. Revenue tells you what people paid you. Profit tells you what you actually kept. So, and keeping the money, building something that compounds, that you can reinvest, and that actually grows your wealth and not just your top line. That's the game we're playing now, and I hope Andrea and I were able to support you. Thank you.
Let me say one more thing about that, Lara, really fast, that I think is really misunderstood sometimes, is that if the goal of your business is to generate enterprise value, like as to say you want to create the highest valuation business possible, in the vast majority of D2C businesses, the driver of the valuation of your business is profit, not revenue. It is profit. Therefore, optimizing for profit, like at everything you do, is like the right way to create not only like the ability to distribute cash out of your business, which is its own value, because a lot of it, your business is in all likelihood not going to sell. Like most businesses just don't sell, right? So already you can distribute cash, which is good in itself. But if you're actually trying to create value in your business, enterprise value, being really profit forward is a really good way to do it. Size and scale definitely help your valuation. Don't get me wrong, and there's definitely plenty of reason to reinvest in moments. I'm not saying you have to take every chip off the table, but it's just worth noting that like this is the way that you create a valuable business, is that you're relentless about costs.
Yes, yes, and we're inviting you to ask questions for me and Andrew. And while we're waiting for that, before we even send you off with your action plan, Andrew and I want to be real with you for a second. We just threw a lot at you. So many templates there, so many sheets. For me, 11 cost categories, then 3 decision buckets, the kill, fix, scale, then 4 growth strategies, cohort segmentation, agency accountability metric, a full 7-day action plan. And if you're sitting there feeling slightly overwhelmed right now, that is completely normal. And it means that you're paying attention, right? Here's what we don't want to happen. We don't want you to close this workshop, feel the weight of everything, and then do nothing because it feels too big
Yeah.
to start. We've seen that happen. And the insight is there, the intention is there, and then Monday comes, and then emails pile up, and the ads need check-in, and suppliers calling, and then tear down never gets done. So Andrew and I want to give you a permission to start small. Because done imperfectly is infinitely better than not starting at all. So if you do have only three things to do after today, do these three in order. Pick one SKU. Okay, just one, not your whole catalog, not your top 10, but one product. Your gut already know which one. It's probably the one you've had a quiet question about for a while, the one where the revenue looks good but something doesn't add up. Start there. Pull every cost you can find for that one product and calculate its true contribution margin using the waterfall we talked through. Invoice from 3PL, invoice from warehouse, invoice from your freight forwarder for one SKU, one afternoon. That's it. That's what you're going to do. Once you see what the real number looks like on that specific product, the rest of your catalog will feel much less daunting and much more urgent. So, step two, have one conversation you've been avoiding. Based on what you learned today, there's probably one conversation you need to have. Maybe it's with your agency, sharing margin data they've never seen. Maybe it's with your 3PL, your warehouse, asking for a cost breakdown you never requested. Maybe it's your co founder or your CFO saying out loud that a product you both love might not be working. Pick the one conversation that would move the needle the most, and have it this week, not next month, this week. It's already Thursday there, so maybe until Monday. One conversation can unlock more than a whole spreadsheet sometimes. And last, step three, stop spending on one thing that you now know isn't working. You don't have to rebuild your entire media strategy this week, but if you walked away from today knowing the specific product probably shouldn't be getting ad spend, stop the spend. As Andrew said, stop wasting money. Not after the next reporting cycle, not after you had the time to think about it more. You now have enough information to make that call. Every day you wait is a day you're paying to move in a wrong direction. So pause it, redirect even 10% of the budget towards something you know has a better margin. So one SKU, one conversation, one you stop spending on. That's it. That's your week or until Monday. So yes, there's a question from Justin, Andrew.
The question is, I built a cost campaign based on your podcast, loaded it with 15 ads that previously performed well in CBO. The CBO target is in line with what was working before, but the campaign isn't spending. Should I switch back to CBO, or should I reduce the number of ads and let it concentrate on fewer variables? Of course, I cannot tell you the answer to this question in theory without looking at your ad account. But let me tell you a couple of reasons that this is likely to be happening. Okay, so I'll just tell you. Number one, you are running it alongside auto bid campaigns. If you think about what that's doing, is you're telling Meta to like, let's just say you're spending $5,000 a day. Okay, just theoretically, you're doing that on an auto bid campaign, and you add a cost cap campaign, and it doesn't spend. Okay, and you put that cost cap campaign in there at the same ROAS target that you're getting in your other ad accounts. Okay, and so in that case, what often happens is that your Meta basically will go through the auto bid campaign first. I see, Justin, this is not your situation, but I'm going to say it anyway because it happens to people a lot. So the reason that happens is because Meta basically is sort of being forced to get through the auto bid stuff first because it's going to spend that money, and then and that means that it's going to then probably have a lower ROAS on the next tranche of spend. And so basically what happens is you're telling the manual bids to only scoop up the leftovers. Okay, so that's part of it. Number two is it's an attribution window problem. This is another really common thing. Let's say you're optimized for 7-day click before, or let's say you're optimized for 7-day click, 1-day view before, and you're getting a 2-to-1 on that spend. Or in a cost cap case, let's say you're getting a $50 CAC. Okay. You're seeing a $50 CAC in your window, but you're actually maybe only getting, let's call it a $60 CAC because you take view attribution out, and suddenly now your CAC is actually worse than it looks like. I believe, I'm actually not 100% sure about this. Talk to Claude about it, or talk to ChatGPT about it. I believe that when you run a cost cap, even if you set a click plus view optimization setting, that it will only do that on a click basis. And what that nets out to is that, like, you put in that $50 CAC target, and you're like, well, why isn't it getting spent? And it's because you actually were never getting a $50 CAC. You're getting a $60 CAC on that number, or you have an attribution window relationship between 7 DC or 1 DC. So it's really hard for me to say in theory which one of those it is. It could be a seasonal moment that happened. It could be something that changed on your website. It could be any of those kinds of things. So yeah, it's hard for me to say in theory. Those are the two most common reasons that I see for it. But my take is it's almost always, and I'm sorry to say this, Justin, I don't mean to sound condescending at all, but it's almost always an error. I'll just say on my side, not on Meta's side. And that, like, if I've got some setting wrong somewhere, and that's the thing that's actually creating the problem. So that's the thing I would look out for. Check your optimization window, check your attribution window, check that 1 DC, 7 DC, 28 DC thing that I was showing you before, and see if those are actually aligned. And if that cost cap that you've set is actually the same as the cost that as the CAC you were getting before, or if you have maybe set your cost cap too conservatively. One very simple way to stress test this is to actually sort of treat it like an auto bid campaign like this. Set your cost cap extra high, like just, I don't know, raise it by 50% or whatever. See if it starts spending, but keep your budget back lower. So now basically the budget works as the governor instead of the cost cap, and see if you are actually still getting the same outcomes as you were before. So let's say you're spending $1,000 a day before. Set your budget to $1,000 a day again. Push your cost cap up 50% from whatever number it's at right now, and see if you're still actually getting that cost cap, because it's still just going to optimize for highest volume at that point. It's just now going to be a switch from where the cost cap is the governor, but now you're making it so the budget is the governor. Eventually, you want to get away from that. That's the whole point of cost caps. You don't ever want to spend through your whole budget on a cost cap, but that would be a way to stress test if something like that is happening. I hope that helps. It's so hard. This is like the hardest question I get. People ask me this all the time, and it's like, if I could look at it, I could probably tell you. I probably don't have time to look at it. You've got my email, Justin. Like, I'll try my very best. I can't promise anything, but I'll try my very best. You can always go back to it. But anyway, there you go.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Andrew. One question I received in DM: what's a realistic CM target for DTC? So a DTC typically 20 to 35% true CM after all variables. Okay, that's why
Including CAC.
yes, including CAC.
Yeah.
That's why the kill fixed scale buckets that we have, it's if it's below 15, you have a work to do. If it's below 15%, it's in the fixed part, you have something to fix. And if it's like 15-20% and up, that's your scale category. Thank you for
the other thing I'll say about this is that CM as a percentage versus CM as a volume number can be a trade-off. Like, it is possible for some brands to want to take a lower CM percentage at a bunch more volume, and that actually creates more total CM dollars, especially if your OpEx is a large part of your cost. Sometimes moving more volume can really help. So there's some trade-off there where you sort of take this out of the unit economic percentage level and instead think about it at the level of like your full forecast for the month relative to your total inventory load, etc. So it's a little tricky, and you can sort of model that in a few different ways. The one other thing is that for some brands, they're purposefully playing a game where they're running a lower margin because like they're sort of targeting value customers, or they're very sale heavy or something like that, to where they're taking a lower CM, but the way they do that is by offering value to the customer in the form of a low price. And so that can be another way to do it. Those are variously hard games, but I'll tell you, like, my people at Simple Modern built a very big business doing that ladder game. So it can be done. It's just like large TAM categories where people are price conscious, etc. So just consider all the trade-offs for all of those things. I mean, I'm with you, Laura. I agree 100% with the answer you said. It's what I would have said too. But there are
Yeah.
some outlier considerations.
Yes, of course. The last question that I can answer for now is, how do I have the conversation with my agency? And my recommendation to this is, the same thing that I always recommend, even with any vendor that you have in China or in what country. So agency or any vendor, share the data, share the tear down data, frame it as giving them better inputs, not criticizing past work. And when they understand where you're coming from, where when they understand your numbers, this is a very important negotiation skill in dealing with vendors as well. If you give them numbers, they will understand you better. And then, if even if they are hesitant to give you what you're asking for, they will always consider that. So in if you're hesitant to share this conversation because it might be, it might sound negative, frame it as giving them better inputs. That's my recommendation. All right. Well, thank you so much. Our time has ended, Andrew. Thank you so much for joining me here. Thank you for those who asked questions. We will be sharing a lot of templates to you, but remember what I told you earlier about the 3 simple steps that you'll do this week in 1 week. Don't get overwhelmed. And we will be sharing our emails as well. Don't hesitate to email me and Andrew, if you have other questions.
I
And we
I
go
know
ahead.
we're wrapped up. I want to say one quick thing too, Laura. I'm sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to make sure
No,
you didn't
sure.
end
No,
it
no,
before I
no.
said it. 2 things. One of them is I'm building my brand with help from Laura and her team at Move. Like literally, they built my supply chain. So it's like this is not me just like doing something for a friend. I'm a big believer in their team. So I just wanted to say like I can show you the packaging. It's right behind me. It's beautiful. It's awesome. Yes, and Laura like and her team fully did all of it. I could not have done it without her. I could go on and on, but they like had sourced 60 manufacturers like within a week of talking. It's crazy. Anyway, just really awesome team there. So thanks, Lara, for having me so much. If you are interested in any of my stuff, the best place is my podcast probably. But you can find most things at ajfgrowth.com, including ajfgrowth.com/podcast is where the links for all that stuff is. And if you want to work with me and my team, we don't have a ton of client space right now, but it's possible we could do that. Go to ajfgrowth.com, fill out the intake form there. Tell me a little bit about your business. Even if I'm not the right fit for you, I sometimes have agency recommendations for people who are. So one way to have the conversation with your agency is to say, we're going to a different one. And it might not even be us, but like it is a real thing sometimes that has to happen. And I know other agencies who think kind of the way we do. So anyway, just want to say those things.
Thank you so much. And you'll have all those references. You'll get sheets, Excel sheets, and our presentation. You have all the information that we've mentioned here. So thank you
Lara,
again. Yeah.
I think a few people jumped onto this late. Is there somewhere they should go? Like they probably weren't registered. They should probably jumped right into this link because I know a few people came through my tweet and some of that. Do you want to send a link into the chat right now in case any people want to follow up and get the presentation?
Okay.
Or email me. Email me
Sure.
and Lara sent to me. Andrew at ajfgrowth.com.
Okay.
Andrew
Got
at
it.
ajfgrowth.com. I'll connect you to Lara. Just send me that email
Okay.
if
Thank you.
if
Thank
you want to
you.
follow
Yeah,
up.
I'll
Yeah.
share the recording right away. Thank you, everyone. See you
Thank
next.
you.